Okay, week 22 of 2025. It is Monday in Millwood Land, and something came up on one of the MMO sites that pops up in my newsfeed. You're talking about GTA, Grand Theft Auto, for whatever reason, on a MMO site as the premise. The author never played after GTA 3. They're probably just doing GTA because of the buzz, right? The trailer came out. You get a lot of clicks if you include a thumbnail or a headline image. What do they call it on goddamn articles? GTA 6 on it. But the real premise was, do you find it hard to play the bad guy in MMO? And so they gave up GTA 3. And gave up the series after 3 because they just couldn't bear to be the bad guy and do atrocious things. And, so that's MMOs, but really games in general, if you're going to use that as the example, right? So it got me thinking about a few things in a few different ways. To their point, yeah, I can kind of see where they're coming from, but obviously not for the same reasons. It's also ridiculous to me to imagine situation where a video game protagonist is so evil in what they're doing that I would find it hard to do that activity, whatever it might be, because I don't know. The thing is, for me, it's getting into a character. You're playing a character, right? You just get into the character of whoever the heck you're playing. If it's implied that I'm a hero out saving the world, then I'll generally conduct myself accordingly gameplay-wise, because that connects in the story. That's the kind of thing, but if there's some darker elements to the character and some of the things they do aren't types of things that I might do, I don't necessarily become horrified to press those buttons because, whatever. It's just part of what would that character do. So, and I'll generally tend to, just as games do, lean to the more heroic, good guy behavior. You've probably seen that if you watch any of my Terraria playthrough. Haha, just kidding. Nobody does. I'm playing new guy, and I'm horrified. Just completely mortified if I accidentally harm critters along the way, right? I'm swinging my sword. I think there isn't one there, or I think one is an enemy instead of a critter, and whoop, I just saw motion and swung my sword. What a monster am I, right? Now that poor bunny's dead. But, and even to the degree of go out of my way to save them from the actual malicious mobs, because what the hell, why not? It adds an element of challenge, and that's what New Guy would do. So, yeah, to their point of MMOs, a Tauren Paladin in WoW, I don't think I'd want him. I don't do the bad guy quest with a character like that, right? If you get a choice. And maybe there's a wrinkle there. Maybe there's a story angle, right? Maybe there's the conflict between loyalty to the faction versus taking the moral high ground. I don't know. It depends on the situation. There's usually a way to make it work. But then once again, when I'm playing a Forsaken Shadow Priest or a Death Knight or a character like that, maybe we do take a little more liberties with what's okay and what's not, and which ways to obtain loot and which quests to accomplish and whatever the heck else, because those characters, I'm imagining, come from a little more morally gray place. And maybe they're trying to get better. They're actually, in the end, the long run, are doing good things and becoming better over time, or whatever the hell. It gives you something to occupy your mind with while you're doing mindless grinding, or, whatever the heck it might be. And so with Grand Theft Auto, it's much the same for me. There's a lot of, either in the lore or in just room that they leave that's vague enough for the headcanon, to where I can see that the character that I'm portraying might see their actions as needed. And if you want an example, look at my video about the unreliable narrators in video games. I kind of have empathy for CJ's situation. No wonder he's doing what he's doing given the circumstances that he's in, right? I mean, these guys live in a chaotic and corrupt environment, like way worse than ours even. I'd snap. They've been pushed over the edge. What the hell? Why not? It doesn't have to be actions that I would take necessarily for me to be able to instruct a character to take them, if that's what I feel that they would do. And hell, back to Terraria, once I noticed the potentially darker implications that Terraria player actions may, the fact that the world may be fighting back against the player based on the way the lore is written, I decided to make my main character more of a kind of a greedy, uncaring industrialist who just portrays themselves as a hero, because that kind of makes more sense. And I haven't quite figured out if this character believes themselves to be the hero, but it's a fun wrinkle to play with, because it would be boring as hell if it was just me. And what I would do given that situation, I mean, I can't do the things these characters can do often anyway, right? But if I could, even then, what I might do in those situations is way less interesting than what I'm doing. These characters, I mean, the player character is the main protagonist of the media I'm consuming. Why would I want to see the same thing play out over and over with just minor variations on the theme? A little bit of a palette swap on every different character in every game that I play. I give them an identity. Sometimes it's good guy, sometimes it's darker, and I play off of it. But again, never in the lore, in the actions they take, is it really implied that they're wholly evil. Crazy Trevor Phillips notwithstanding, he just needs some help that he's not getting, you know what I mean? He's not necessarily evil, and again, he may just have snapped based on the wackiness of the world around him. But based on the way that prompt was written, and also the commenters and members of staff that chimed in when I was reading there, I might actually be the minority in this. Or maybe it's just that I'm a minority amongst MMO players, or that particular obviously could be just that particular community, right? But even one of these people was talking about immersion in the context as a factor of these things. So going back to what I was talking about earlier, immersion is what you think you're doing these things, and that's when you're immersed. Because to me, it's more like being immersed in a book. Like, the protagonists in most books don't do things that I would do, but I still can become immersed in them because I'm getting in the headspace of that character. Like, I don't even think this is necessarily a role portrayal thing. It's just understanding how stories work and where these guys belong in their world. So yeah, immersion in that context is the gameplay mechanics are fluid enough that I forget I'm playing a game and I'm just observing the story. Even though I know, obviously, I've got agency. I'm using that agency to do what seems natural for the guy, not for me. Because again, how damn boring is that? And I'm just about ready to wrap this thing up. I realize, there is another angle. I mean, I play Grand Theft Auto story mode, going through the missions, portraying the character as I expect them to be, right? But additionally, there's more of I don't even know, like when I was younger, I'd sit around with my friends, single player Grand Theft Auto games, and just kind of round robin, hand the controller off. Alright, it's your turn to just go and create chaos and eventually die. It was the end of each person's turn, right? That was kind of the incentive, is you get a longer turn, the more you can pull it off, but nobody was allowed to just derp around. We'd taunt you for it, and use terms, 2-star terrorist became a derogatory thing. taking it out of the abstract of that video game, that's terrible, because none of us are, would ever engage in such activities. But if you're going to portray it in fictional media, you really want to do the best you can. 2 out of 6 stars is just abhorrent, ridiculously bad, right? You want to get up there. And that increases the challenge and also increases the likelihood that I'm going to get my damn turn again before I have to get out of here, or whatever the hell, right? So, yeah. Then, of course, that's the kind of behavior that's being portrayed, though. But I don't find that hard to do either, because, again, that's completely removed from the character, from it's more about the sport of it, the challenge of, again, eventually this bad guy is going to get his, right? That's the end result that is expected and intended in the long run. So, there is a good moral conclusion to the story, I guess. They don't live another day, except for, of course, then you respawn and reload, and it all starts all over again. But yeah, again, that's completely abstracted from any attempt at immersion or storytelling at that point. That's more of like an arcade approach to the game, which, the sandbox world is good for both. Telling stories. They wanted to tell movies. Turned out that the mechanics included are fun for just horsing around too. So yeah, I guess there is another wrinkle to that where, yeah, I do actually portray absolutely abhorrent things with those good guy characters, but at that point I'm not. It's not story time, right? It's just improving your skills for next time it is story time, or whatever the heck. Killing some time. So yeah, I think that's all I got on this. But expect more from me shortly. I'm actually going to record another little talky bit right now, because the next one will be my 10th talky, podcasty, whatever the heck you want to call this type of video. And I've arbitrarily set that as a milestone that I'm trying to reach. So what the heck. Let's get there right now. More of this from me soon, about a familiar topic. No spoilers. Get there when we get there. And I think I might actually get going on that Terraria. Speaking of that, in here, new guy has been neglected for quite some time, and we really got to get him fighting bosses. So, bye for now, and just get my finger over the button that ends the recording and say the magic words. Alright then.